Hello, welcome to Ear Training. This is episode 5 in an ongoing series. If you haven't seen any of these before, then head back to the start just so you can get up to speed, and then pop back here and we'll get started. In this lesson, we're going to be expanding what we looked at in part 4, which was the basic major and minor triads along with the diminished and augmented, and we're going to be looking at the basic 7th chords. Now we're only going to be looking at 4 this lesson, but they are the sort of 4 most important ones. That's the major 7 chord, the minor 7 chord, the minor 7 flat 5 chord, sometimes called the half diminished, and the dominant 7 chord. Now these are all the basic 4-note chords that are used in modern harmony, and a good ear recognition of these will put you in good stead for transcribing sort of basic jazz and blues tunes. Let's get started. So similar to last time, we're only going to be looking at the chords in terms of 4 notes. I'm not going to be looking at any huge voicings of these. You're only going to hear 4 notes for each chord, and the root is always going to be in the bass. Because I've got little hands, I might be voicing them slightly differently, but the root is always going to be in the bass, and the 7th is always going to be on top. So let's take a listen to the different kinds of chords. I think you'll probably find it easier to pick these out than perhaps the diminished and augmented chords in the last one, because these, as we add more intervals to the triads, they sort of get more and more distinguishable. So the first one is the major 7 chord, which sounds like this. Now I find this one really easy to remember because it just sounds really nice. It sounds very pretty, and it sounds very resolved. There's no tension going on there for me. It just sounds like home. There's a Dream Theater song that starts off, I think, similar to that, which is, I think, is basically riffed off an Eric Satie series of pieces, of which one alternates between 2 major 7 chords, so that's perhaps why it sinks in for me as well. But just listen to that. It's built from the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and then the major 7. So to play a simple voicing of this on the guitar, you could play 5th fret on the E, 7th fret on the A, and then 6th fret on the D and G string, and that's our A major 7 chord. The next chord is the minor 7 chord, which is the natural extension of the minor triad, and for this we're playing the root note, the minor 3rd, the perfect 5th, and then the minor 7th, and that sounds like this. Now I remember this not by it sounding sad like you would do perhaps the typical major and minor chords, but I think of this as quite jazzy and quite quite funky, I suppose, because it's used in that kind of music a lot. It's sort of a bit more sultry, a bit more mysterious than the normal minor triad, because we've got that added minor 7th in there. But it should be easy to tell that apart from the major chord. They are wildly different. The next chord is perhaps one of the most important chords if you're going to be studying sort of more popular music in the 20th century, especially so if you're going to be looking at jazz or blues. I mean, it is the chord for that kind of music, and that's the dominant 7 chord. Now you can think of this as a mixture between the major and minor 7 chords, because we've got the intervals of a minor 7, excuse me, we've got the intervals of a major 7, we've got the major triad basically, but that 7th is lowered, making this dominant 7 chord. And I think of this as sounding, whereas the minor 7 chord might sound a bit sultry or mysterious, I think of this as sounding jolly and upbeat, more so than the major 7 chord, which sounds quite relaxed. This one sounds quite it's very, again, this is one of the things that's very hard to articulate. This is why I'm sort of trying to do these videos, is because it's very difficult to describe some chords sometimes. But basically, if you've ever played a blues, they're dominant 7 chords basically. So we can play a dominant 7 chord again in A by playing 5th fret, on the E, 7th fret on the A, 5th on the D, and 6th on the G string, which gives us an A dominant 7 chord. So listen to those 3 chords and try and find your own ways to distinguish between them before moving on to the last one, the 4th chord. So the last chord is sort of the ugly stepchild of these 4. It's not used as much, and it's only ever used really in passing harmony. You could build a song off the major 7 just vamping on it. You could do the same with a minor 7 or the dominant 7, and many people have, but the minor 7 flat 5 is a bit too tense. The accompanying scale for it, the Locrian mode, is a bit too obnoxious to sort of focus the whole piece around for most ears, certainly mine. But it is still worth looking at. It's the chord that we build from the 7th note of a major scale, 7th note of a major scale, excuse me, or the 2nd note of a minor scale, natural minor obviously. And it's exactly the same as the minor 7 chord, but with a flattened 5th, hence the name minor 7 flat 5. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, this is sometimes called the half diminished chord, because it is very closely related to a diminished 7th. I don't really like using that term, mainly because I think quite mathematically when I think about how chords are constructed, so it's nice for me to hear the names of the intervals when I'm talking about it. But anyway, it sounds like this. So just for a bit of context, I'm just going to play the normal minor 7 chord, and now the minor 7 flat 5. So you can hear it's a little bit more tense. We've got that flat 5 in there, and again, just to play that, I'm playing 5th fret on the E, 6th on the A, and then 5th on the D and G strings. It is an important chord to learn, but it can be very difficult to distinguish between that and the minor 7 sometimes. But the key to listen out for is that tritone there, because that will really make it stand out. So I'm going to switch off the camera now. Again, as usual, there's going to be 20 examples. This time we're going to be playing each note in the chord separately and then playing the chord together. So for example, I'll be doing that twice for each example. The answers for the quiz are in the description below. Don't check obviously without doing the quiz itself, because hopefully this will be really useful for developing your ears. Next lesson we're going to be looking at scales, which will be a departure from the chords we've looked at, and a good knowledge of chord recognition with your ears is going to put you in amazing stead for picking out those separate intervals. So I hope this has been useful. Please give me some feedback if it has, if there's anything else you want to see more of. I'm happy to take on board ideas. In fact, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. For every example, you'll hear each note of the chord played separately and then together. You'll hear each example twice. Example 1. Example 2. Example 3. Example 4. Example 5. Example 6. Example 7. Example 8. Example 9. Example 10. Example 11. Example 12. Example 13. Example 14. Example 15. Example 16. Example 17. Example 18. Example 19. Example 20.